Below is your full 1,400, 1,700-word professional YouTube voiceover script, written in American storytelling style with strong emotions, natural pacing, cinematic scenes, changed names and details, and a hook designed to lock viewers in within seconds. No line break spam, no special characters beyond commas, hyphens, ellipses, and a powerful call to action at the end. Title: The Husband Who Defended His Mistress, until his wife became someone he could never reach again. A script, 1,550 words. The slap didn't just sting. It rearranged something inside me. I remember the crack in the air, the taste of blood on my tongue, and the look on my husband's face when I hit the floor. Not shock, not regret, but annoyance, like I had inconvenienced him. And just like that, the last piece of who I used to be snapped. You know what I mean? 1 second you're a wife, the next you're a stranger in your own home. My name is Lena Carver, and this is the story of how the man who broke me ended up begging for another chance. While I walked into a life I never thought I deserved. It started on a Sunday afternoon. I came home early from my sister's place because I forgot my work laptop. I wasn't expecting anything except a messy kitchen and maybe a pile of laundry. Instead, I found my husband Brian half-dressed on our living room couch with a woman I'd never seen before perched in his lap like she owned the place. She was wearing a tight red dress that I recognized instantly because I bought it for myself last month. And she had the nerve to look at me like I was interrupting. Brian didn't even jump up or look guilty. He just stood, rolled his eyes, and said, "Don't start, Lena. You always make everything dramatic." I said, "That's interesting coming from the man cheating in his own living room." The woman giggled, and I swear something inside me twisted. She brushed his chest and said, "Maybe if you gave him attention, he wouldn't need mine." That's when I snapped back. If by attention you mean dignity and self-respect, then yeah, I guess I'm lacking. Brian suddenly marched toward me, face twisted, and said, "Don't you talk to her like that." Then it happened. His hand flew, my cheek burned, and my whole world reset. I looked up from the floor and said something I didn't even recognize as my own voice. "You hit me." To defend her. She smirked, tossed her hair, and leaned into him like it was some romance movie. Brian growled, "Get out. I don't want to look at you right now. Our house. The one we saved for. The one I painted. The one I decorated." I remember standing there thinking, wow, this is who you really are. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked to the bedroom, grabbed the essentials, grabbed the picture of my dad I kept on my nightstand, and headed for the door. Brian followed, yelling, "So you're just giving up? That easy?" I said, "No, Brian. You gave up the moment you let her walk through that door." Then I walked out, keys shaking in my hand, heart pounding, but lighter than I'd felt in years. Like all the heaviness I carried in that house wasn't mine to carry anymore. I checked into a hotel that night under my maiden name. The girl behind the counter saw the bruise forming on my face, but she didn't say a word. She just upgraded my room and handed me the key like she was placing a sword in a knight's hand. In that room, I took photos of the bruise, opened my laptop, and started researching divorce lawyers. No tears, just game planning. Pain has a funny way of sharpening your focus. By morning, I had 3 consultations scheduled. And let me tell you, the first lawyer, Ms. Avery Grant, didn't mince words. He hit you, while defending his mistress, in your shared home, with your joint assets involved. We have leverage. She laid out everything I needed to do, new bank account document, every transaction, gather proof file first. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone was fighting for me instead of against me. That same afternoon, with a police escort, I went back to get my things. Brian wasn't home. But the red dress woman's shoes were by the door. In my bedroom, I noticed the sheets changed to some cheap satin set that definitely wasn't mine. That should have hurt, but it didn't. It felt like confirmation that walking away was the smartest thing I'd ever done. Over the next month, I rebuilt myself piece by piece. I rented a small apartment downtown, took on more clients for my freelance branding business, and slowly I stopped waking up in panic. I stopped replaying arguments. I stopped blaming myself. Then, one job changed everything. A high-end development company in Crescent City wanted a full rebrand for their hotels. The CEO, Ethan Blake, wanted to sit in on my pitch personally. I remember walking into that building in a navy blazer I bought on sale thinking I don't belong here. But the second I started presenting, the room changed. People listened. Ethan listened. Not like Brian used to pretend to listen, but truly listened like my ideas were worth money and time and respect. After the pitch, he looked at me and said, "Ms. Carver, I think you're exactly what we need. Can you start Monday?" That contract didn't just pay my bills. It gave me back my confidence. It forced me to grow, forced me to show up, forced me to see myself as someone capable. Ethan and I worked together closely for months. He was calm, respectful, and had this quiet way of making you feel like you were capable of more than you thought. But I kept things professional. After what I'd been through, the last thing I wanted was another man complicating my life. But sometimes life doesn't ask for permission. One evening, as we wrapped up a meeting, he asked if I wanted to grab dinner since we were both still at the office. I said, sure, thinking it was just work. But dinner turned into conversation, and conversation turned into laughter, and laughter turned into this feeling I hadn't felt in so long. Ease. I could just be myself. No shrinking, no walking on eggshells, no editing my personality to make someone more comfortable. I tried ignoring it. He's my boss. The timing is terrible. I'm still healing. But then one night he said something that cracked my walls a little. He said, "It's nice to meet someone who doesn't perform." And I said I performed for 8 years. I'm done with that. And he smiled in this soft way like he understood exactly what I meant. Still, I went slow, really slow. But he didn't push, he didn't chase, he didn't demand. He just kept showing up, consistently, respectfully, like the opposite of everything I'd survived. Then came the twist. 3 months into working with Ethan, just as my life was finally stabilizing again, Brian called. Then he texted. Then he showed up at my apartment building at 10 at night. He looked rough, tired, like life had done to him what he once did to me. He said, "Lena, I messed up. Please, just hear me out." I didn't let him inside. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, calm as stone. He rambled about the mistress leaving him, about losing his job, about realizing I was the only one who ever really cared about him. All the cliches a man uses when he's not sorry for hurting you. Only sorry you're no longer there to cushion his downfall. He said, "We can fix this. We can start over. I've changed." And I said, "Brian, I changed too. Except my change didn't come from losing everything. It came from choosing myself." He got angry, of course. Called me cold. Called Ethan a rebound. Called me heartless. But his words didn't land. They didn't stick. They didn't hurt. Because the version of me he once controlled doesn't exist anymore. He left that night with a warning, something bitter like, "One day you'll realize what you threw away." And I said I already have. Then I closed the door. That moment wasn't painful. It was closure. Real closure. Not the kind you beg for. The kind you earn by rebuilding yourself from the ground up. Life kept moving. Ethan and I eventually became more than colleagues. Slowly at first, then steadily, then fully. He never tried to replace my past. He just offered a future that didn't require me to shrink anymore. The satisfying part. A year later, when Ethan was promoted to chairman, he asked me to lead the entire creative division. Not because I was his partner, but because I'd built a reputation strong enough to stand on its own. The victory moment wasn't the job. It wasn't the relationship. It was walking past a mirror one morning and finally recognizing the woman staring back. Strong, unbothered, joyful, whole. But here's where the debate starts. People always ask, what if Brian truly changed? What if he deserved forgiveness? What if he was hurting too? Here's my answer. And I know some of you might disagree. You can grow, you can change, you can apologize. But you don't automatically get access to the person you hurt just because you regret losing them. Growth does not entitle you to someone else's healed life. Some people are meant to be lessons, not returns. So let me ask you this. And I want you to drop your thoughts in the comments because I genuinely want to know if someone breaks you, cheats on you, humiliates you, and then comes back years later saying they've changed. Do they deserve another chance? Do people truly transform? Or do we just get better at recognizing what we never deserved in the first place? Tell me your take. Share your story if you've lived through something similar. And if you're in the middle of your own storm right now, trust me, there's a version of you on the other side that will make everything you survived worth it.